Hello, future humans. It's Najee Coach here, and whew, I've been busy. I got 6,000 new samples loaded up into the sample server program, and I've been just going, and doing all the various things that need to be done to get it ready for me to play with for doing soft reads. So I'm all set to go. So tomorrow I will begin doing soft reads, and 6,000 samples in there. Not sure how many I'll get, but there is a swath of over 1,200 samples that is just the winter sports, just from the Olympics. Not just these Olympics. I went and gathered everything I could from past Olympics, but it's all winter sport athletes. And that's over 1,200. Jailene and I have been playing with that for a few days now, and I think I can say that we'll get over half. I think I can say that. So that's over 600. And those samples are coming from a lot of the practicals, which are areas that we need more samples on to get them closer to their 1,000 plus that we want for all the gender mojos. So very exciting. That's 600 or more samples that will go directly towards building up that much needed area of the Rosetta Stone. I sort of went into, like, you know, dissociated mode in order to, well, not dissociated, but sort of ethereal mode. I was just working. Well, yeah, I think it's a good way of looking at it. I was just going. I was one with, you know, the apparatus that I had to work with to get these things done, and so it's a good time to kind of do a little change of pace in order to sort of make a nice clean shifting of the gears. So tomorrow I will begin doing that, but I want to kind of come out of a little bit of a fog I've been in where I was focused on just building. Like I was really channeling my inner Zy. I was the builder man. I mean, obviously I'm doing 9G the whole time because I'm keeping track of the project, what it all means, and how it's going to be suitable for teaching people. So that was always there, but there was a lot of Zy and V. And just go until, oh, okay, I've been doing this for quite a while. I need to eat something, I guess. Yeah, just go all day, and then I just eat pretty much at night. Watch some TV, zone out, boom, wake back up, you know, and back at it, builder man. So I'm shifting out of that into more reading focus. I always doing reading. I read when we do the shows, and, you know, Jailene been doing read on the winter sport, and we've been purifying pressure on the A grade samples. So, you know, I've still been reading, but now it will become my main focus. Anyway, on to the main point of this vlog, which is that I got a forum post from Dire Magpie reacting to Jordan Peterson. Wendy and I had gone back and forth with some communication on the subject of Jordan Peterson, what he kind of means for the general, you know, cultural landscape, and some of the various activism pushes and how they're pushing against each other, and what that all means and so forth. So that had been a thing, and Jordan Peterson was sort of mentioned as a focal point during that, and Dire Magpie is reacting to that. All right, as I said, I'm kind of shifting gears here, so I'm using this as an exercise to loosen up, kind of get back my fifth gear, best equilibrium before engaging more fully tomorrow. So as a part of that, I may kind of wander with my speech, and I'm going to allow that to happen because that will help me equalizing. There's things that are on my mind I need to say, and it may just kind of come out, and that's fine. So this will be a bit of a raw style, but I am going to have, for me, the focal point of this forum post I want to respond to. So before I get started, I'll just mention one more thing, that probably there's things that are brought up in this that are it's part of a larger picture than what Dire Magpie may be directly talking about, but I want to use this as a way to kind of get in the conversation. But from there I may jump around a bit, because this involves things that have been on my mind for some time. I've been having conversations with my various selves, my higher spirits and so forth, and yeah, I'm interested to speak on this because I've been listening to a lot of things and thinking a lot of things. All right, let's get started. So he starts with, ugh. Just finally watched a video of this Jordan B. Peterson. Okay, so you're upset. Got it. All right, he's one of those types I absolutely despise. All right, now I read this like a while ago, so I don't remember exactly what was here, but I remember some general kind of just theme energy anyway. Yeah, this I'm remembering, like, this is confusing to me, Dire Magpie, and this is a style of communication that I see being done a lot, and I'm just going to kind of speak on that. Because Dire Magpie, you and I have had friendly interactions, and I think well of you, and I think you think well of me, so I'm going to kind of try to respond naturally. I have some concerns on your behalf, reading what I'm reading from you. And that comes from a friendly place on my part towards you. But there are, since you are in friendly terms, I'm just going to speak authentically, but from a friendly place. But authentically speaking, that's very strong. If this was more of a flippant kind of, you know, prose you were doing here, I'd be like, oh, that's just kind of like to charge up the language for effect. But here, this is a pretty straightforward, on-the-nose delivery of your thoughts. So in that context, absolutely despise is very strong. Okay, these are things that Jordan Peterson, I'm using as an example, but this is, I've seen this kind of way of couching arguments and couching expressions of positions, and oftentimes people who do this are not very receptive to hearing feedback on it, authentic feedback. But this is a good chance, since me and Dire Magpie have a friendly rapport as far as I know, I'm going to try, and I think he thinks that I'm a good person trying to do good, not saying I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm trying to do good. All right, so from that kind of place, that kind of wears me out, to be honest with you. He's one of those types I absolutely despise, because Jordan Peterson, I think, clearly bothers you. So that's what I got. Ugh, he bothered me. Just finally watched a video of this Jordan Peterson. Okay, this Jordan Peterson. The way you're saying that, you're distancing himself. I'm upset. I'm distancing myself from this human. Okay? Okay, well, you know, like, we're fellow tribes people here. Like, okay, why is that? He's one of those types I absolutely despise. There's murder. There's rape. There's pedophilia. There is embezzlement. There is gang activity. There is criminal malfeasance in positions of responsibility, being an educator or a medical practitioner, something like that. You know what I mean? Okay, those to me, and there's maybe some other things there too, you know, war crimes and just stuff like that. Despicable. He's not any of those things. Okay, so as far as I know, and I'll get more details here from what you said, it sounds like you don't like his position. You don't like how he's going forward. And you really think he's got things wrong. Okay, I don't know if I agree with you on those, but let's actually take it as a what if. What ifs are fun. Okay, what if I feel the same way as you? What if I think that Jordan Peterson is in a bad place inside, he does not know what he's doing, and yeah, he's moving forward in a way that is not like it should be. Okay, there's one thing I think maybe it's kind of built into this, but I don't see this one aspect which is needed for me to go from that, which is like problematic. I mean, that's definitely problematic, which kind of, you know, are conceptualizing here. But bad intent. Bad intent and criminality, or fucking people up. All right, I don't know if I can ascribe that to him. Even if I was to disagree, I get an example, like take, what's the guy's name? Ben Shapiro. Okay, Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro is on the right. He has positions like pro-life, which is against the pro-choice side of it, and I fundamentally disagree with him. And I think it comes from leaning too much on tradition, leaning too much on Christianity, blah, blah, blah. So I think he's totally wrong on a very important issue. And I think that he does a lot of pushing in the world, convincing people of his argument, which is an argument I think is wrong on an issue that's very important. Still don't despise Ben Shapiro. That's some energy I think you'll want to do something with, and perhaps you're doing it now. Maybe this is the first beginnings of this, and this communication could be helpful in some way. This needs to be processed into something more helpful, because that is an inordinate amount of displeasure, despising something, for a person that, as far as I can tell, he may actually be in a different political side than you, a different cultural, economic echelon, or place in the world. Okay, and then he's convincing a lot of people of these ideas. I don't know. I can't despise a person like that because they're wrong, but think they're right and are trying to do what they believe is right very strongly. Yeah, I just have to let you know, like, I'm like, hey, bud, hey there, Dynamic. I can't be, I'm not down with despising someone over that. I need more to despise a human. I need clear, villainous intent. And just, in case you think you have to take the word despise out of your lexicon, no. With that criteria I just gave you, I can still list all kinds of criminal people and just horrible racist people, and I mean just really bad people that, you could still actually use that word more appropriately, and you would still have plenty of opportunities to use that word. But I'm curious, if you despise Jordan Peterson when he breaks no laws, he doesn't fuck people up. He actually has helped lots of people through his practice. He's helped a lot of people to understand things they didn't understand before online. Now you may think he's doing some things wrong, but he's still within, I think, healthy range of a human. Humans actually have very different ideas on things. You have to understand that. Healthy humans have a great divergence in opinions. And a annoyance, an aggravation when someone or some group that actually is saying ideas you don't agree with is getting traction. People are listening to it, or they have a fumasta way about them. You're like, ooh, it's very aggravating. Okay, that's just part of life. And particularly if you actually want to be discoursing with upper level humans, even if they, first of all, no human's going to have the exact same ideas on everything. That's just not going to happen. So, when you become an upper level human, not saying that you're not upper level, but you could be more upper level. We could all be more upper level. As you get more upper level, there's the issue of, I'm talking to a person who's very formidable and very dedicated to what they do. They have a lot of ability and a lot of commitment. And I disagree with them on like how this ship should do that. That's like really important to me. Yeah, I think there needs to be a high tolerance for, ooh, I wish things were different, and this human is making the destiny of things go in a way I don't like. But that's not a villain. And I think to despise something, you would need it to be For me, villain. Absolutely, I think villains. But maybe if you're more easy with despising people, at least a monster. I think you have to be at least a monster. As far as I can tell, he's worst case scenario, he's a misguided hero. If you listen to him talk and you read him, he's trying to do good. So, worst case scenario, he's a clumsy, overzealous, misguided hero. All right. That maybe makes you roll your eyes, but I can't. I don't want to have my spirit despise something like that. If I did, I would be despising way too much of existence, because there's a whole bunch of people who are way worse than that, and these kinds of people who may be wrong where they're trying to do good. I mean, a lot of times, just be honest, in many adventures that have happened in human existence, that's as good as it gets. That's. Not everyone's going to agree. That's just never going to happen. So if one wants to get outside of their own bubble of people, same ideologies, or maybe it's a bubble of one and it's about your pain. Your pain will be alleviated if it can actually connect more with existence, but that will be difficult if you are despising so much of it. He continues. Basically, he assumes everyone is a Vi Alpha, so has abilities that Vi Alphas have. Yeah. I wouldn't disagree with that. I think everyone suffers from that to some degree, and the best way to get around it is kind of do the training that we do in Pod Lair, but it's an ongoing journey, so even when you're doing that kind of training, you're always just pushing back your ignorance. We're all doing that, and a central element of that ignorance is thinking that this, special thread that is for you, and that's your personal story, that actually the human species is a tapestry made out of all these threads. And to understand what's going on, you have to go way beyond just the thread you're given. So everyone does that. So that's first of all, so I'm not going to despise a person just because they do that. And then, be honest with you, this way I think you're angry at him for other things. I think maybe he touches a button in you and it's making like some sort of outrage come up from you. Because right here, if you listen to him, I mean, I don't know how many humans you listen to, Dire Magpie. I've listened to a lot of humans in my lifetime. I do on a regular basis. He's way more self-aware and generous to different storylines than his own, this is a fact, than most people. He's easily in the top 25%. I would actually put him fairly high, but I think if you look and listen to him, and then you listen to other humans talk, shit. He's easily in the top 25%. Okay, so that, if you're saying he's only 25%, okay, but then that means that you're going to start despising, or at least giving, shade to, or, some side eye to everyone who's kind of a little overly stuck on their own story. Okay, he actually studies Jung and individuation, which is actually trying to extend your story and then realizing your story actually spreads into the all story. He's got that much. Do you know how few humans do that? Seriously. Okay, so if that's a knock on him, wow. You're going to be putting a lot of marks on your board of humans who upset you. You're going to have a very large collection of that upsets me marks. Because he's way better than most people on something you're calling him on. What you're calling on is true, but yeah, I'm going to give most humans a pass on that, Dire Magpie, because otherwise I'd be too upset at too many humans too much of the time. He continued, also he's a typical collector of trivia, unable to synthesize it in any kind of useful truth. All right. Well, that's just not true. He's a typical collector of trivia. He's not typical. He actually collects trivia, if you want to call that, little detail zingers. He does that in order to make stronger arguments. Most people who collect trivia, or just collect things in general, that doesn't mean you can present. He is a professional highly skilled educator. So, no, he's able to synthesize lessons. Okay, he took people who actually were making less money and they wanted to make more money, and they did a little psychological life coaching, and then they ended up making a lot more money. He's done it for lots of people on other things like quitting smoking, blah, blah, blah. So he was able to put together a program, put it to another person, and they took the steps of that program, or that prescriptions, and get somewhere. So he's a builder of pathways for people. You can disagree with how good he is at that, or which pathways he's building, and he should or shouldn't be doing that. But no. Have you listened to him argue with other people? Seriously, if you're going to say, I'm curious who you... Everything that he does synthesizes into a point. He's actually quite strong on that. I'm thinking that perhaps mentally you want to out on things. And by the way, this is key. I'm not like a super fanboy of Jordan Peterson. I think he's a strong thinker, and I think he actually is trying to do good, and I think he's generally unjustly maligned. With that said, I have things that I think are wrong with what he's doing. I think he's way too on the Christian thing, and you see his thinking gets less strong there. Okay. So he has, holes in his hero game. Everyone does. What else? He gets kind of weird with defining the word truth or universal truth. He kind of uses two different things when he's talking, and I don't think he realizes he's doing that, or maybe he does to some degree. He needs to work on that because he does that sometimes just to win the argument, because his version of truth comes from his religious upbringing to a kind of core degree, and he's trying to do that while still being smart. So he actually uses two words for universal, two definitions of universal truth, and he gets kind of wiggly with them. That's a big problem. What else? I think in general his definition of truth that he most usually sticks with is that truth is that which is most useful. Him and actually Ben Shapiro were joking with each other, and they sounded stupid to me, where they're like, yes, whatever you do that makes the most babies, that must be the most right. That's just ridiculous, because, well, one's Jewish and one's Christian. Islam is actually gaining on them. Does that mean that Islam actually makes more sense in their religions? Islam makes more babies. So, I mean, that doesn't make sense at all. And besides, historically, it is on record that there are plenty of just stupid people who believed really stupid things, but they had lots of babies and successfully got them to be healthy and make more babies and make, provisions for them to grow in the world for generations to come. And they were demonstrably stupid on things. Okay, so that makes no sense. He sounds silly and stupid when he does that. Ridiculous. This is key. A word's important to me. He sounds stupid when he does that. I would not call him a stupid man. Even though that particular argument he made, that argument was stupid, and I can actually easily harpoon that argument so badly with it's stupid, there's nothing else you can say except that's a stupid steak. Yep, gonna fry me up a stupid steak. Trying to actually stick him with he's a stupid person, no, that's not going to stick. Not unless a person already just doesn't like him. But objectively, it's objectively a much better argument to make that he is a misguided smart person, which is highly dangerous. I mean, that can be alarming. But again, dangerous and alarming isn't despicable. Next you go. I absolutely despise all these dim-witted psychologists that talk about how people's development is disturbed by actions of other people and how their functioning is impaired, and then they suddenly ignore everything they learned and start talking about necessity, responsibility, and hard work, and all the other stuff that was broke in the first place. Okay, well, I gotta be honest, this doesn't make much sense to me what you just said here. You made it sound like they committed this major crime of thought. It doesn't. It seemed like evolution of thought, continuity of thought, completion of thought, forward movement of thought. They talk about how people's development is disturbed by actions of other people and how their functioning is impaired, amongst other things, but basically that's an element of nurture. How they were nurtured or not nurtured how they were nurtured or harmed by the world growing up, that's going to actually be something they have to deal with. That is going to be a windage in their sails. They'll have to learn to surf that. Then suddenly ignore everything they learned. See, I think you maybe ignored it. Saying that you are just, and I've heard Jordan Peterson talk, and I've heard other psychologists talk, and they talk a lot about how influential those factors can be. While never saying, not they're good psychologists, and I've heard Jordan Peterson talk, so I know he has this point, free will. You're supposed to exercise free will. It will be harder in certain things. You came from certain backgrounds, had certain experiences, things in your childhood, give you PTSD or whatever. Yes, that is true. It is a powerful truth. You have free will to steer your ship where you want it to go, regardless of what the windage is of your nurture, harm, upbringing. That's a very powerful truth. These two truths in no way contradict each other. And the stronger they get, they still don't contradict each other. If anything, they dovetail into what is life like and how do you do it well. Well, how does it start? How does that influence things? Okay, where do you want to go? What power do you have to make that happen? You basically just described that conversation and acted like that was weird. Like, just because you actually are having certain factors like grew up in a family that didn't have a father or something else, other things that are known to have certain things. Those influences in general to people in the species, that's true. But every person is their own story. And so that doesn't mean you're destined to have the same thing happen to you, but that is something to be aware of. In fact, knowing that that's going on can be helpful in you going where you want to go and realizing, oh, what's this going on? I need to actually go for this job thing I want to do. I like what that is, but I have to go up and talk in front of people in order to get it, in order to keep doing it. And I really want to do it, but I really don't want to talk in front of people. And when I do, something comes up inside me and I get so upset, so anxious, I can't do that, and thus I can't have the cool jobby thing that I wanted to do. You have to ask yourself, where is that coming from? I need to do something about that because I'm getting in my own way. So it's good to know about factors that could be very influential into kind of like how the world has pushed you about, but then still saying, I am the chosen one, I'm in charge of this story, I am not, that's not like prophecy, those are statistics. Those are useful information. Those are stories that may be somewhat similar to my story. So if I want to be successful in my story, it's good to know that there are actually some maybe special things I have to navigate, having had a certain background. That could be helpful in going forward, which is your responsibility. So I don't see how these two thoughts actually in any way contradict. They seem to actually help each other out. They counterpoint each other. And then I'll just go back here. You absolutely despise these dim-witted psychologists. Okay. Despise twice in a row like that, that's intense, man. As a person who's like trying to listen to you in a friendly way, I'm like, whoa, okay, you're really upset. At this point, I haven't heard the points of what's upset. In fact, I actually mentioned one thing. Throughout this, there's no quotes of what he said. There's not even like a quick little synopsis of an exchange he had. And there's no link to a video. There's really nothing about this boogeyman that's being explained to me. And that's really weird. Like, that's a lot of energy. That's kind of like, someone's like has a letter that you haven't read yet, and they're just getting, oh, Dan's a jerk, and Sally's this, and oh, can you believe what they're so bad. What's it say? They're so bad. It's kind of weird you're not reading any sentences out, or giving me the letter to read, or pointing to the, the internet and saying, oh, go look at the last 3 emails that were sent. Like, this is a lot of energy without that. Let me tell you that, as a person who studies human motifs, that's weird. It's weird to actually have this much and not have a quote, not have an anecdote of what went down something. This is just all very, very vague, but with a lot of displeasure and upsetness on your part. So no kind of links to what exactly, like I don't even know the name of the video you're talking about, or even the subject he was talking about. Nothing. Just, Dr. Magpie, you should be aware of that. As a human, you actually, whether you know or not, you did this. You had to go out of your way not to do that. Because that's the natural way humans are in general, all mojos. When they get a certain level upset, they'll rant about it, but they'll want to point at it and go, see? When you don't have that urge completed to point at the words, point at the video, point at the time code, point at the situation you're describing, like an actual scenario, it's weird not to do that if you truly believe your outrage is justified, or at the levels that you're doing it is justified. Humans in general, when they get a certain level upset, way lower than you are, so you're well past that threshold, you want to point to people and go, is it me? Or is that fucked up? Okay, that's how humans are, all of them. Seriously, all cultures. They do it different ways, but all humans do that once they get upset enough. They're like, no, I know, right, you're thinking this is, oh, you think this is over the top. You think my reaction is over the top. Come over in this room and look at it. Look what this person did. Look at it. Okay, that. It's weird to have this much being upset without that reaction going in tandem with it. Just be aware of that. That's like a basic thing about human psychology. And they said dim-witted. So Jordan Peterson has a high IQ. He has a higher IQ than a lot of other psychiatrists do, psychologists. So he's not dim-witted, and his lectures are well put together. They help people learn things. You may disagree with what he's teaching, but that's different than can a person put a lesson plan together. For example, Ben Shapiro. I think his arguments are wrong on pro-choice, pro-life argument. I think he's wrong. Fundamentally, I disagree with everything about what he's saying. He can teach a class on that argument. He can make a strong argument. It's wrong. It's off on things, but it is a well put together argument by an intelligent person. To actually call him dim, one, I'm going to I'll be in trouble if I engage that kind of person with an attitude of spirit that I'm dealing with a dimwit. No, I'm not. All right, so Ben Shapiro is like right. He's on the right, and he's therefore very different views than I have. But it would be a mistake to think of him as dim-witted. Also, I do myself a disservice by telling other people I think Ben Shapiro is dim-witted. They'll think I'm a dimwit. People who are upper level on either side, or even better, if they're on the outside, they don't have a dog in the fight, as they say, and they're listening to these way people are talking. He's a dimwit. If I actually say Ben Shapiro is a dimwit, which he's not, even though I disagree with him strongly, fundamentally, to an outside observer with higher consciousness, I clearly am highly biased. That's a highly biased argument. Like I'm overreaching. I'm trying to smear him with, denigration that he doesn't really deserve, because the thing I want to attack, I'm not able to just make go away. I wish people would stop making that argument. But they're humans, they have that right to have a difference of opinion in me, and they have the right to make their difference of opinion well structured and influential to people. They have that right. Even though that annoys me even more. It does, but still, they have the right. They have the right. So again, if you consider Jordan Peterson dim-witted, I've seen lots of teachers, he teaches well. Just like Ben Shapiro. He gives good lectures. He does good debating. That he does. Even though it makes me just facepalm listening to him talk. Right, so I'm face-palming, but I can say he's not dim-witted, and I don't despise him. I'm just, I'm upset. I'm upset. All right, so typical dimwit. Use dimwit twice. When you do things like that, and from a poetic prose kind of form, and really just dialogue, it seems clumsy and a little too trying too hard. It's like when people actually just put fuck, shit, like it weakens a joke. If you're going to use cursing in jokes, and you can, it can really add a lot, but it's got to be done in a way that it helps. The punchiness helps. Otherwise, it's like despise, dimwit. Yeah, like I just did it there to make it sound kind of cool. I almost had to turn it into a little bit of a rhyme, because that's kind of repetitive, stabby language. When you do that, you need to have a very strong point. You want to make sure you just made an argument that's very difficult to refute. But like dim-witted psychologists who say that people's early experiences can just have radical influence on them, and then they say that it's still their personal responsibility to make their life better and go forward on their own merits. Huh? Ridiculous. Am I right? Dimwits. Okay, no. And the fact that you gave so much heat, it's like a comedian who gives tons of heat on a weaker joke. You can take a mid joke and give it some heat and it can sound like a good joke. But if you put too much heat on a weak joke, people just go like, cringe. It's cringe. Typical dimwit too blinded by his privilege. Is that because he's a white straight dude? He's educated? Not sure which one you're talking about there. He's blinded by it. His arguments are arguments that are held by classical liberals, which is something that lots of high-level thinkers from all kinds of cultural and economic backgrounds have taken on as values that they think are important, strong and good, true. Okay, so I have a question. The way you structured this, you're kind of making me go with, he's blinded. So we're like, now he's a blind person. And I'm guessing that was because he was too dim-witted about how he saw psychology, and the fact that he overly rates his own story, and that he is a collector of trivia. Just so you know, for myself, I can't take hype and then stack hype on hype on hype. Oh, that's cool hype at the beginning, but I need a rung. I need a rung to hold on to. I haven't been given it yet. First of all, I've been given no link to the video, no subject, nothing. I have no idea what we're talking about. And that wears me out. So I'm looking for a rung here. I haven't found it, but I keep finding, oh, he's bad, despise him, typical Vi Alpha, dim-witted psychologist, privileged. You haven't really hit anything solid yet. I haven't actually heard you say, like, I give you one. Him and Ben Shapiro were talking on Dave Rubin, so just type those three things in, you'll get what I'm talking about. And they were talking about Christianity and how it gives meaning, and it has to give meaning because it makes more babies, and what makes more babies means you're right. That's stupid that's ridiculous. Okay, there. If we want to bash on Jordan Peterson, that's my bash. My bash makes sense. My bash has a video you can just go look at. And you just take that snippet and you're like, that does sound stupid. I listened to, like, who was it, Atheism Estoppel or some blogger out there, actually just go off on it for like an hour about how stupid that was. And I'm like, that's all true. So, just so you know, I have no problem with people bashing on Jordan Peterson. And I can even go, yeah, I agree, that bashing is true. That was really bad. He doesn't sound like that when he's talking about evolutionary biology. When he's actually talking about that to people who actually think that their sex is just a construct. Okay, no, he has very strong ideas, they have very bad ideas, and those are things people get upset at him about usually. People don't even really get that upset at the Christian thing and meaning of truth thing, except the more skeptic philosopher community. The vast majority of his haters hate on him for the stuff he's smartest at. They hate on him for actually saying that there are two genders, that those genders have different cocktail sets, which means they're going to have different proclivities in life. Those things all have tons and tons and tons of scientific backup. Tons. Hundreds and thousands and millions of scientists and participants and observation. That's solid. So he's really smart on that. He's saying the smart stuff. And that's one of the things that's getting people very upset. So when people actually seem to get very angry at him, I notice they get angry at him for the reasons to me that doesn't make any sense. Ironically, the people more measured and aren't so upset, they actually are quite, alarmed at how he has two definitions of truth, about how he leans on Christianity so much. You know what I mean? Like, that's a problem. So, typical dimwit, too blinded by his privilege to develop ability to understand what he has memorized. No, you go look at the Kathy Newman interview. He basically explained intelligently and made several connections to evolutionary biology, and she was unable to follow. And he continued to help try to get her stupid, and he actually gave her a moment of clarity at the end. Didn't last long, you know what I mean? She's still what she is. But no, he actually taught her. And she kept moving around with her brain trying to dodge. She did not want to actually learn. And he taught her something there. So that's not memorization. That was a person who was reading another human, saw they were wrong, how they were wrong, watched them do a variety of maneuvers, stopped each of those maneuvers, and then actually maneuvered that person against their will into having a moment of clarity. That's demon slaying, and well done. Again, I just gave you a video. So go type in Jordan Peterson and Kathy Newman. And look at Kathy Newman, a human who is deranged. She's talking, she's like unable to understand basic English. Regardless if you agree with his views or not, she was not able to understand the words coming out of his mouth. Okay, and he was helping her. That's not memorization. That takes a great deal of skill, a great deal of patience, a great deal of control, a great deal of experience in doing such things, which he has. Now, again, I'm thinking he probably brings in some Christian stuff when he's giving those therapy sessions to people. I have an issue with that. He has been a successful practitioner of his discipline. He's had people very happy with what he does in that work and with his online lectures and with his school lectures. So I have to acknowledge that. It's when you don't want to acknowledge that, you should be aware of that feeling in yourself. It's you holding yourself back from truth and growing that you need to do. Even though the other person may have things off, whatever. But notice how your reactions are and how you're trying to stack your outrage. My advice to you is to be outraged as little as you have to in life. As little as you have to would be my recommendation. And that you stack your outrage cleanly and tightly. And then on that platform, sure, have a rock show of like, fucking stupid, and I'm going to tell you how, and I'm going to do it to a fucking beat. Sure. But make sure the platform you're on, clean, cool, concise. Make sure you can deliver it that way, and then put that forward or make that like a central point inside, and then build, your emotional responses on top of that, so your emotional responses aren't leading your understanding of reality and your sense of equilibrium. Your sense of equilibrium should come from virtue. And there's emotions that go with that, but you do have to have principles of operation. You have to have the correct virtue principles in order to actually be at that equilibrium. Otherwise, you won't get it. And you'll think that moving around in the outrage is the point of it. No, the point is to actually come to a place where you're no longer outraged. Come what may. That doesn't mean don't ever get outraged again, but that's the goal. The goal of pain is to make you aware of danger, to help you heal. It's important that you do that and don't think the idea of pain is to teach you that life is painful. That's not the purpose of pain. So outrage is to actually get you to a better place. When it does that, it's very noble and very powerful. Otherwise, it kind of just swirls around and eventually just swallows you up. He decided that one can't criticize society if one isn't living a perfect life, isn't working hard, etc. Okay, so right here, I know this isn't true, then you're actually not presenting this person's argument correctly. I haven't even heard the video you're talking to, but I've heard enough of what Peterson has said in different venues, and he believes that humans are fundamentally flawed, and well, not flawed, all humans are flawed, and they actually have great turmoil in them that they have to do something with in order to become a better person, and that this is an ongoing process. So that wouldn't jive with what you're saying here, because if that's what he actually thought, he himself would not criticize. So I believe you're probably using hyperbole here. What he's probably said is something to the effect, which is something I believe in: the volume and ferocity of your voice should be in proportion to how much work you've done. That is the way of nature. You actually, in any animals, any in the world, you need to have done things enough in order to go yapping at the rest of the wolf pack, the rest of the penguin pack, the rest of the seagull pack, you know, whatever it is. If you're going to yap a lot and get people's attention a lot, yes, it's not a good idea if people come around, people who yap a lot, and then when you come around, they're telling you about how sticks are, and they only got 3. And like everyone around's got like at least 3. Most people got like 5 to 10 sticks in various things. So, and there are people who have 20 or 50 sticks that they're building stuff out of. It doesn't make sense for people who actually are currently fucking up to be telling other people what to do, or demanding that they actually have things done in the way they think they should be done. That doesn't make sense. I've heard him express that, and that may upset people. But that's a call to competence. That's a really good idea. On an individual level, on a general species level, on an evolutionary history level, that's good. That's successful. If that bothers you, you're just going to have to get to a better place with that, because that's reality. Not everyone should just get to talk about what's on their mind as much as they want, at the volume they want, taking up as much time, because there's limited space. There's limited space in the airwaves, in people's ears as far as sound, but also in their head, just swirling around ideas. Everyone wants to be listened to like they're an expert, but most people aren't experts. So people have to curb that. They should be able to talk, and this is how humans do, and this is proper. Talk is for as much of an expert as you are that's relevant. If you're talking to another person and they don't know anything and you do, you're the expert. If you both know something but you're more pumped up about it, okay, that makes you maybe have more investment here. But at a certain point, you also run into people who have significant experience and training and skill and verifiable abilities. They get to talk more. Other humans will want to listen to them more, and it is actually annoying to have people who have less earned voices insist on having their radio channel always being heard all the time, as if there's never a reason for other humans to want to dim their signal. That stings, but that's a sting of inappropriate self-centeredness that someone would actually have hurt of their own to deal with, ideas of their own to pursue, opinions of their own that are different than yours, while still being within their rights as a human. They're not doing anything wrong. Either that, or he's too broken to do that. I'll be honest. I need to have a kind of a build-up of proper aggression on points that are more solid than ones you're making, to ever feel happiness that someone else is broken. I rarely get to that place where I wish another person was broken or take pleasure in it. I don't feel it does good for my soul. It would need to be a villainous person directly in the path of me or my loved ones in order for me to think, I'm going to actually see you broken by my own power or another power, or just watching until some power shows up and does it. And when it does, I'm going to be happy. That's not a spell I'm looking to cast. That's a spell that, yes, it is within the human repertoire of spiritual spells they can do on themselves, but that one would have to be forced. That's a card I would have to be forced to play. I do not willingly want to actually break another person. Well, perhaps break their limits in a competition. That can be fun, and I can be very dominant in that way. I understand that thrill, and that can be a healthy thrill. But just happy someone's broken, or being able to dismiss them because they're broken. For me, if I could dismiss someone because they are broken, like their brain doesn't work in some way, I would really feel lowly using that. I would only use that if I absolutely had no other choice. There was some high stakes thing, I had to win, and this is the only way I could win. Otherwise, I want to have some sort of clear-cut thing I can point out and I can constellate to people, describe to them. They can go, oh, I see what you're talking about, and you're right, they're wrong. Like Ben Shapiro. Even if there was something that came out that he did something he shouldn't, he was sexually, had misconduct, I don't think anything like that with him, but let's say there was. You could perhaps say he was broken that way, morally broken. Or perhaps it's actually confirmed he has autism or something. Ah, he's broken in that way. Whatever it is. I'm very reluctant to use that way. Like, I would feel weird. I would have to explain to myself why I didn't just point out what made no sense in his arguments. To me, it's a cheap win to, like, because it's like, first of all, a lot of times it's just ad hominem, but even if it's actually relevant, even if it is a relevant sin that they have, brokenness they have, I don't want to win that way. And I don't feel any happiness that even an opponent of mine is broken in some way. I don't want to be, I'm talking about spirits now, just so you know. Yeah, I have no interest in being pleased by that. Yeah, so he decided one can't criticize society if one isn't living a perfect life, isn't working hard. All right, address that. Again, probably something based on being a Vi Alpha. You're trying to use this Vi Alpha to, you're trying to play on the fact that all mojos have things that are more challenging for this, and you're trying to go typical here. First of all, any mojo can actually perform all kinds of functions of life at a high level. They may be more challenging in some ways, they may have to do it in a certain variety in some ways, but still. So using someone's mojo to actually say, ah, he's probably broken in that way. Vi Alpha tend to break in that way. Again, I wouldn't want to use that, but if you're going to use that, I'm going to need some documentation. I'm going to need you to actually, like, read out something that he said. I'm going to need you to point to a video. That's rough. I'm saying this to you from a friendly place, Dynamic Pipe, but this is rough energy you got here. It's kind of dark, upset, and doesn't seem like it actually has it's looking to move forward. It seems like it's kind of just getting, like, imbued with this outrage. All right, so used to justify economic and biological liquidation. He believes in hard work, and he believes that everyone actually is strong if they actually look to themselves and try to grow. They can grow. If they look to grow, it is there. So that's not okay. These terms you're using, biological economic liquidation. Those words need a Bernie Madoff. Okay, Bernie Madoff liquidated people's retirements and lives. Hitler in the death camps, they liquidated people's bodies. People who become dictators and they actually take a democracy and make it, you know, a strong person, you know, dictatorship basically. They liquidated people's rights. That's such a strong word. You'll need something with that. Like, when I hear that word, I need something that tells why is that word being used. There's nothing strong enough to actually justify that, because at this point he is yeah, this sounds like an arch villain. This is an arch villain. You're describing an arch villain. Or a monster out of control. A violent monster out of control or an arch villain. But I haven't seen evidence for that yet. I've seen mistakes he's made. And like I said, I listened to a few videos. The two of them were like an hour long. They're long about how he messed up and he was not thinking right in a certain thing. So I don't mind hearing that stuff, but I haven't heard it yet. And I gotta be honest, I hear a lot of people trying to make these kind of arguments out of them, and they generally are kind of just snowflakey. I don't mean mean, but I'm not saying that you're snowflaking here, Dire Magpie. I will say that it seems like you are upset about something that's not Jordan Peterson. There's some kind of deep upset you have that he has triggered. And then this is kind of like spewing out about it's a buildup from something else. Because these things you're saying about him, they don't really seem to stick on him. And I'm open to actually his flaws being pointed out to me, and then I'm like, oh, I'll stick that point there. And I've had vloggers I've listened to do that, so I'm open to that, but I'm not hearing it here. And I've noticed that the people who actually kind of paint him as this bad person, their logic tends to be very poor. Their communication skills poor, and their documentation, their like evidence, very poor. That's a theme. That concerns me. And you know, some of them we've been friendly with each other, Dire Magpie. I'm concerned for you that you are using this kind of behavior, because it's behavior people that I don't think are in a very good place. And perhaps you need to talk with someone about this. I don't know. It's not my thing. I'm not a therapist, but because it seems like you just have a lot of like upsetness that you need to vent, and certain things will trigger that. But it doesn't seem to be, to me, directly relevant or proportionate to the triggering device. In this case, Jordan Peterson. They don't, despite that they collected massive amounts of evidence that it has to be done. Oh wait, I know that victims of psychological liquidation must receive awesome compensations, generous disability pensions, and high quality help and recovery. Well, that's an interesting point there. I've been talking long enough as it is, so I can't get really deep into that, but that's a whole other discussion, which is, you know, what is available. Resources are limited. That's part of existence, not just in today's day and age. It's always been that way. Resources are limited. So everyone who's been done harm, psychologically, sexually, you know, physically, whatever it is, awesome compensations, generous disability pensions. I don't know. You realize that's not going to be possible for everyone. Just not. There's way too many people hurt for the tribe at large's, you know, aggregate resources, all the resources of the tribe. Even according to what you said here, I get the implication that you think that it's just like tons of victims everywhere. This is just basic triage. You're going to need to have a certain number of people getting things forward. And then if they get things forward, they can help other people out. But not everyone can get awesome compensations. Awesome? Okay, awesome compensations is going to therefore be a substantial payout. Who's going to pay for that? Who has the time, the energy, the money, the technology? Where is that coming from? It's not. We're all part of the tribal organism. And we all can make cases where if there was unlimited money, yes, you need all these treatments, you need all this therapy, you need all. Let's start that. How many people need therapy? Significant therapy. Okay, first of all, you would need way more psychiatrists than there are now. we were talking about, you'd basically need one shrink for every person or one shrink for every few people, and you're like, lots of people need this. Okay, you'd have to do the draft to get that many people into one occupation. So right there, you're upset with reality. I think this is a part of reality that just is upsetting to you, and it can be upsetting, but you have to process it and get through it. You know, let that sadness give you gravitas. Let that sadness help you empathize with other people to make you do good efforts to move things forward for you and other people. But it's not possible for all victims to get awesome compensations. That is not a possibility in reality. Generous disability pensions. See, even the term generous, because for example, in the future we might have, like, you know, machines doing everything, and they'll pay a lot of the population to have a livable wage. Okay, but awesome compensations, I don't know. When one's in pain, the need of that pain can seem more paramount to the story of everyone than it actually is. It's making its, you know, primacy felt in your story, but that's not the entire tribe's story, and it can't be, because that would eat up all the resources, and then even people who were able to not use awesome compensations, they'd have their stuff taken away in order to actually pay for the awesome compensations. That's not viable. There's nowhere in evolutionary history, there's nowhere in stars and how they are formed. There's nothing where that works like that. So I think you have to accept that reality is going to actually have a level of pain, a level of being upset or hurt, that if we were in a world that was centered around you, you would be, yes, you could use that latest medical technology to help you out. Yes, you could actually use a team of shrinks. One shrink for each actually day of the week. One therapist for every kind of element. You have a sports therapist and a relationship therapist and a meditation therapist and an art therapist. Okay, if you have the opportunity to do that, that's great, but it is unrealistic. I mean, I would say anti-reality. It's beyond unrealistic. It is anti-reality, because I'm all about possibility. I'm all about being original and creative and so forth. But I'm telling you, I've not seen anything in all of existence, from the cosmological down to the cellular, from the most sophisticated tribe to the most primitive people from back in the day. That's not a feasible way to work. Although people want that. That's a want humans have, and it can be a painful, you know, just sometimes crushingly poignant want. But that poignant energy is going to need to be channeled into other ways than making reality warp into things that reality just isn't. The reality is there's never been a collective species, period, that could give awesome compensations to everyone. It's not possible. So that upsetness you're getting at that, it's just going to build and build and build like a powder keg in you. You're just going to burst like a swollen barrel. You'll need, when that energy comes up, to figure out how to process that into something, because that's your reaction to an aspect of reality that's not going to be changing. I wish it were. I mean, I think every person who actually is missing a limb should have cybernetics, so they don't have it. And that exists. There is technology that you could do that for, and you could spend to get more technology. But there's all these other elements of life that would be radically impacted, diminished, if you just that one illness, that one medical issue is a limb that they could get a cybernetic thing for. If that was easy to do and there was not an issue of resources, would you want to do that? Of course. Of course. We'd want everyone to have a cool bionic limb, so they have a limb that's just as good as what they had, maybe even better. That's not possible. You would actually, to do that, you would lose so much money for cancer patients, for childhood sexual molestation therapy. Like there's all kinds of things that actually would be diminished in the world. Entertainment would be diminished. Goods and services, stores, fire departments, things like that. This money would come from somewhere. And that's just one thing that we all can feel painful about, that these poor people, children, grown-ups, older people, loved ones, they're missing a leg, and they have to go in their whole life without having that second leg when the world could give them a leg if it cared enough. Well, that's an overly simplistic way of looking at it. While I completely understand being very upset by that fact, you have to kind of pull back a bit and realize that life has this contestation of things. It just does. And not everyone's going to get everything that they definitely have a need for. They're going to go through their life with needs unmet. There's no way to mitigate that. Well, you can mitigate the severity, but not the existence. All right. They don't, despite they collected mass amounts of evidence that it has to be done. See, right there, it has to be done. You're going right to the moral argument. You haven't actually addressed the existential argument. Is that even possible? And the answer is no. Not the way you've laid it out. So they've collected mass amounts of information that, yes, people who have amputated limbs, they would be much happier if they had state-of-the-art cybernetics. That doesn't mean they get to have them. They need it. It would be really good to do it. You'd be a bad person if you didn't want them to have that. And I agree on all that. It's not going to happen, though. That's not going to happen. All the amputees out there are not getting cybernetic limbs. They're not. And in the future, where cybernetic limbs become easy, then they will. Not until then. But then there'll still be other trauma. There'll still be people being sexually molested or whatever, and they'll need therapy. Therapy is very expensive. So you have one person who's having trouble functioning as part of like a unit of the species, and then other units of the species are actually spending their energy to help this one unit. If you can, yes, but you do understand that there's just an inherent strong pressure of limitation on that. And have all the relevant information memorized. It's because they don't do anything with the evidence. No. The evidence is that people who've had trauma growing up would be helped greatly by therapy and other help. Okay, so there's lots of evidence for that. And you're saying they don't do anything about that, or at least to the level you think they should, because, which is awesome compensation and generous disability pensions, it's because they can't do anything with the evidence. They can make a case of how important this topic is, but there are lots of important topics. Cancer research, they need lots of stuff. Blind people need lots of stuff. War veterans need lots of stuff. Malnutrition people need, there's all kinds of groups that, like malnutrition people, they need lots of food. So there's lots of things that need to be done that it's not possible to do everything. I'm worried that you might take what I'm saying and get into a big thing about capitalism versus, socialism versus, like economic stuff. I'm not even trying to get in the conversation. That's not something that really interests me. What interests me is humans and how they think in general. And this is I don't know economics. I don't know what the right one is. I don't know necessarily, how each one should be done for best effect and blah, blah, blah. What is the ideal one? I don't know. That's not my thing. I do know that whatever it is has to be based on a desire to do good with the reality of existence. And you're making statements here that to me aren't reality. Jordan Peterson's not dim-witted. He doesn't actually win his arguments through memorization. It's not possible to give every person who's been traumatized as a child awesome compensations. You won't, yeah, that's just not possible. So this is a lot of issues with existence. These are existential issues. And you're trying to make them a moral failing issue on some other party and just get real pumped on that. I think you should really, my advice to you is come at this as an existential question. I believe that's the greater dilemma and the greater angst that you're feeling. Not saying that you aren't feeling great emotional pain through yourself or through empathy for other people's pain, but it's because there is moral failing. But from what your kind of reactions, my read on you is that this is actually something about how reality has a lot of pain in it, and has a lot of disagreement, and has a lot of individuals being aggravatingly different from one another while still just being a human. Those cause personal, emotional, psychological pain, but they're based on a incongruity with one's expectations of what reality is, and therefore what it can be. What it should be is very important, but first has to be tackled, what is it, and my level of acceptance of the way the world is, the way existence is. Otherwise, the great anger and upsetness and feeling of disappointment in the limitations of existence will be put on other people. They'll bear that weight of that crime, the crime of how existence operates. All right, I'm going long enough here, so let me finish up. I wonder if they come from traumatic background that imagine they have put themselves together, but they didn't really because their need doesn't come in when it should. Well, if Jordan Peterson has come from a traumatic background, he's done a very good job of developing himself and making himself helpful to other people, even if he may have certain positions that you disagree with strongly. But, you know. Or just we're constantly playing in easy mode, didn't develop it, or maybe it's just a hardwired limitation of that mojo. I've not seen any limitation in what you're talking about, and if you're going to put that forward, you're making a declaration. You have to give me at least one example. One example of what you're talking about, of how his knee was unable to do something. So far, yeah. Be aware of this. You've talked rather vaguely. You've talked rather broadly. You've used very buzzy words, and you've omitted really any concrete thing. Name of the video, subject talked about, words he used, anything of that nature. What I do know of things he said, when you are like paraphrasing or trying to like say his take, I'm like, that isn't the take I heard. I heard a different take. Like, he believes you have to be perfect. So I'm like, I've never heard him say that. In fact, that sounds like something that he would definitely not say, not from other things I heard. Sadly, failure to interpret information isn't such a big obstacle to career as failure to memorize or work hard all the time. So don't get flushed out of the system and can continue doing damage. All right, go look at the Kathy Newman interview with him. He was actually using different ways to try to get her to understand what he was talking about. So that wasn't memorized. Those were, those are things he learned, but he's actually using them in real time based on what this human's limitations are and what their biases are. He's recognizing what they are, and he's finding the right thing to put in there. So that's just good abilities overall. I'll just end with this: flushed out of the system. Jordan Peterson, the last thing that needs to happen to him is flush him out of the system. He's a very powerful thinker. He's elevating dialogues, even on the Christianity thing and his understanding of universal truth. I think he's wrong about those things. However, the dialogue on those issues has elevated when people are talking with him, because he works at a high level. Even when he's wrong, he tries to really work hard at it and try to figure things out at an upper level. So when other people are criticizing him, it's upper level critique. So that's not someone I want flushed out. I don't want Ben Shapiro flushed out. I disagree with a lot of what he says, but I don't want him flushed out. He actually makes strong, well-structured arguments he makes a good presentation of that, so it's a good thing, it's a good foil. It's a good foil to actually work on critiquing. Yeah, Jordan Peterson is on one of the highest echelons of thinkers. But this case, so is Ben Shapiro. He just is. And I disagree with him, and I think what he's doing can be doing a lot of harm. His insistence on the pro-life thing, I think that can cause a lot of harm. I fundamentally really disagree with that, and I think it's a bad idea. But he's not stupid, he's not a villain, and I wouldn't want him flushed down the system. He's not an incompetent person. He's someone I disagree with. And that's aggravating, but in an empowering way, a way that gives me life vitality. This upsetness makes me want to actually have a very good argument, so people hear what he's saying and they're like, oh, that makes sense. I'm like, does it? What about this, 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 and this? Does it still make sense now? That I use that energy to get me up in order to counter that argument, but counter the argument with actual counter argument. I don't want them just flushed out. I don't know, it seems kind of like a little bit like a deplatforming stance. Like you wouldn't want to hear Jordan Peterson at all. I think that's a mistake. Again, I disagree with a lot of Ben Shapiro. I still like to hear when he talks because that is one of the most cogent, concise, competent deliveries of that argument. In fact, if I want to know what that argument is, the pro-life argument, which I disagree with, I listen to him so I can hear what it sounds like when presented by a well-intentioned, highly intelligent, committed person. I would not want that voice to go away. I want to know, in case it changes my mind, I want that possibility. It's not. I've heard that argument. It doesn't change my mind. But I want to hear it well done. I think the argument would get cruder without that being around. I think Jordan Peterson is in that way as well. So I don't agree with you on your sentiments. Take that for what you will. Yeah, but I think, yeah, I don't even know what else to say. I guess right now I'm getting distracted. I'm now thinking about my next push. So I guess where should I go? So I'm going to get some rest, and then I'm going to begin doing the soft reads. But this I'm going to talk about because there's a lot of people that I like. We've had a little bit of interaction over time, Dire Magpie, and I like you. I won't say we're friends, but I like you. We don't know each other that well, but it's been friendly, and I would want good for you. And this worries me. It worries me on your behalf. So, yeah, I wish you luck, and I'll be back on the quest trail. So good luck on your journey, Dire Magpie, and later all.